TMZ Sports reporting wrestling legend Hulk Hogan has died at the age of 71 years old. This coming through just a few minutes ago.
A 911 call marked the end of an era. The world lost Hulk Hogan. We were told it was his heart. But what if the cause was something far more strange? His ex-wife Linda just revealed a chilling secret about a remote island and an experimental treatment that went horribly wrong, and it changes the entire story. The story we all believed. At 9:51 in the morning, a panicked call came into 911 from Clearwater Beach. The words were chilling and direct: a cardiac arrest. The address belonged to none other than Terry Bollea, the man the world knew and loved as Hulk Hogan. The timeline seemed so straightforward, so tragic, so clear. But what no one knew was that this final, tragic moment wasn't the start of the story, but the desperate end to a secret he had tried to bury. It all appeared to start back in May of 2025. The Hulkster, a man whose body had been a temple of power, was paying the price for decades in the ring. He went in for what his team called a little fusion procedure on his neck. But this was no small thing. It was a massive 4-level surgery. Years of taking hits and delivering his famous leg drop had finally caught up to him. His wife, Sky, mentioned it was an intense surgery and the healing would be a long road. At first, everything seemed okay. The public was told he was up and walking the very next day. His good friend Eric Bischoff told everyone he was recovering just fine. But behind the scenes, a different, much darker story was unfolding. By the middle of June, scary rumors started to fly. People with inside knowledge, like radio host Bubba the Love Sponge, began saying Hogan was in the hospital with serious heart problems. There was even talk that family was told to come say their final goodbyes. Hogan's team tried to shut the rumors down, but something felt wrong. Then on July 1st, the reports got even more terrifying. Bubba claimed Hogan might have suffered brain damage because he had trouble breathing for a long time and was on a ventilator. Again, his team denied it. But the pattern was clear. The official story, the simple story of a surgery gone wrong, was starting to show cracks. We saw a man who once seemed invincible now struggling for every breath, his famous voice silenced. But Linda Hogan, the woman who was by his side through the peak of Hulkamania, just revealed that even this darker story isn't the real one. What she knows paints a picture of desperation and a secret so big it was kept hidden until now. Truth be told, the surgery wasn't the real gamble he took, it was just the cover for something much more dangerous. Just when the world was settling on the tragic tale of a wrestler's body giving out, Linda Hogan dropped a bombshell that shook the foundation of the story. She came forward not with anger, but with what she called the missing piece of the puzzle. She said that Terry, desperate to feel like the Hulkster again, made a choice that nobody knew about. A choice that led him down a path far away from any Florida hospital. According to Linda, the neck surgery in May was real, but his recovery was slow and frustrating. The powerful body he knew was failing him, and at 71 years old, he was terrified of living a life of weakness. He couldn't stand the idea of being confined to a hospital bed. He wanted one more run, one more roar from the crowd. It was this desperation, Linda explains, that made him listen to whispers about a place that promised the impossible. This place was a private, secluded island in a little-known stretch of the Caribbean, a place called Restoration Cay. It wasn't on any public maps and was known only to the super rich and powerful. It was a place you went when modern medicine gave up. It offered wild, experimental treatments that were not legal in the United States. They promised to not just heal, but to reverse aging, to restore strength using methods that sounded like science fiction. Linda revealed that Hogan, against the advice of some of his closest friends, saw this as his only shot. He believed he could turn back the clock. He invested a fortune to be flown there in secret shortly after his initial recovery from the May surgery seemed to be stalling. He was chasing a miracle, a way to become the Hulkster one last time. He didn't tell his current wife, Sky, the full extent of the risks, framing it as a private wellness retreat. He wanted to surprise everyone by returning stronger than ever. But Restoration K was more than just a secret clinic. It was a place with its own dark history and strange energy, a place where the promise of a miracle came with a terrifyingly high price. What Linda revealed next about the island itself makes the story even more chilling. Restoration. K was a beautiful nightmare. From the air, it was paradise, all white sand beaches and impossibly blue water. But on the ground, things were very different. Linda Hogan, gathering information from a close source who was with Terry, painted a disturbing picture. The island was basically a high-tech fortress. There were no signs, no logos, just stark white buildings surrounded by dense jungle and security guards who never spoke. Believe it or not, the few locals on a nearby island had strange stories about the K. They called it the Island of Whispers. They talked about strange lights in the sky at night and supply planes that would land on a hidden airstrip with no markings. They said people would arrive looking old and sick, but no one ever saw them leave looking better. The facility was run by a group of shadowy doctors who had been pushed out of the medical community for their radical ideas. The treatments themselves were the biggest secret. Linda explained that Terry was undergoing something called genetic recalibration therapy. They were using a blend of advanced stem cells and other strange, unproven techniques to try and rebuild his damaged nerves and muscles. They told him it would make him feel 30 years younger. He was given daily injections of a glowing serum and had to spend hours in a high-pressure chamber that was supposed to flood his body with oxygen and spark cell regeneration. For the first couple of weeks, Hogan actually felt a surge of energy. He was ecstatic, believing it was working. He sent a few secret messages saying he was on the verge of a comeback that would shock the world. But then, something went terribly wrong. The source told Linda that the intense, unregulated treatment started to backfire. Instead of healing him, his body began to attack itself. His immune system went into overdrive. This was the turning point. The miracle cure he had gambled everything on was now poisoning him from the inside out, and he was trapped on an island with doctors who were operating far outside the law. The next part of the story reveals the frantic, desperate race to undo the damage before it was too late. The nightmare begins. The dream of a comeback quickly turned into a living nightmare on that isolated island. According to Linda's source, the first sign of trouble was Hogan's heart. The powerful stimulants and strange serums from his treatment started causing his heart to beat irregularly. Then came the breathing problems. The high-pressure oxygen chamber meant to heal him had instead damaged his lungs. He went from feeling younger to feeling weaker than ever before in a matter of days. This is where the timeline connects back to the public rumors that his team tried so hard to deny. When Bubba the Love Sponge reported that Hogan was hospitalized with heart issues in mid-June, he was right, but it wasn't in a Florida hospital. At the end of the day, he was in the infirmary on Restoration K, his condition spiraling out of control. The doctors on the island, realizing their experiment had failed catastrophically, panicked. They put him on a ventilator to keep him breathing, which confirms the other rumor that swirled around on July 1st. The prolonged breathing issues were real. The fear of brain damage was real. The man who had flown to the island full of hope was now unresponsive. The staff at Restoration K knew they had a massive problem. A dead global icon on their secret island would expose their entire operation. They had to get him off the island without anyone knowing he was ever there. This led to a top-secret medical evacuation. They couldn't just call an ambulance or a Coast Guard helicopter. Instead, they used one of their unmarked cargo planes, fitting it with medical gear to keep him alive during the flight back to Florida. He was moved in the dead of night, a covert operation to cover up the disaster. The man who arrived back in Clearwater was not the same man who had left. He was broken, and the people around him were now locked in a desperate struggle, not just for his life, but to maintain the secret of where he had been and what had really been done to him. What happened next, in his own home, was the final, heartbreaking chapter of a secret he would take to his grave. When Hulk Hogan was secretly flown back to his home in Clearwater, the situation was beyond grim. This is why the story of him being cared for in a hospital bed at home under constant medical supervision was true. But the reason for it was the deepest secret of all. It wasn't just to give him comfort in his final days. It was to hide the evidence of the Restoration K disaster from the world. Unmarked ambulances were seen coming and going from his property, not just for privacy from fans, but to bring in specialists who could work in secret, people who wouldn't file public reports about the bizarre and extreme state his body was in. Linda's source confirmed that the doctors in Florida were baffled. His system was ravaged by substances they couldn't identify. His organs were failing in ways that didn't line up with simple complications from neck surgery. Think about it. The man who survived 25 major surgeries over the years was now being defeated by a secret he chose. His longtime manager, Jimmy Hartz, revealed that Hogan had lost his ability to speak was also true, but it was a direct result of the neurological damage from the failed island treatment. The iconic voice that shouted, "What you gonna do, brother?" was silenced by a gamble for eternal youth. His final public appearance on January 6, 2025 now looks so different. Fans noticed he was off, that he was booed. Looking back, many now wonder if the plan for his secret trip was already in his mind. A final, desperate attempt to win back the adoration of the crowd and feel the power of Hulkamania one more time. He was already a man searching for an impossible answer. For weeks, he lay in that bed at home, a prisoner in his own legendary body, while his team managed the public story, feeding them pieces of the truth, but never the whole picture. The world thought he was fighting the after effects of one surgery, when in reality he was losing a war started by another, much more secret procedure. And this all leads us to that final, fateful morning when the secret battle finally came to an end. On the morning of July 24th at exactly 9:51, the carefully constructed wall of secrets finally came crashing down. The 911 call for a cardiac arrest was the final, unavoidable public admission that the fight was over. Clearwater Fire and Rescue arrived just 5 minutes later, and police arrived shortly after. They did everything they could. They loaded him into a Sunstar ambulance at 10:32 in the morning and raced to Morton Plant Hospital. For 45 agonizing minutes, medical professionals fought to save the icon, but at 11:17, Terry Jean Bollea was pronounced dead. The official cause was cardiac arrest. And in a way that's true, his heart did stop. But Linda Hogan's revelation changes our understanding of why it stopped. It wasn't a heart that simply gave out after decades of wrestling. It was a heart that had been pushed to the brink by an experimental, unregulated, and dangerous treatment. The cardiac arrest was the final symptom of a catastrophic systemic failure brought on by the disaster at Restoration K. The punishment his body took in the ring was one thing. The punishment it took on that island was something else entirely. It was a knockout blow from which even the Hulkster could not get up. The police confirmed no signs of foul play, and it was ruled a natural death. And again, in a clinical sense, it was. But the choices that led to that natural death were anything but simple. The tributes poured in from everyone, including President Donald Trump, who called him a true American icon. Everyone mourned the man who seemed to beat time, a legend who entertained millions. But now, with this new information, the story is no longer just about a hero's sad decline. It's a cautionary tale about ego, desperation, and the dangerous pursuit of lost glory. He didn't just lose a match against time, he lost a secret high-stakes gamble with his own life. The Hulkster's last bell has rung, but the echo sounds very different now. His legacy is cemented in history, but the story of his final days is more complicated than we ever knew. Was he a victim of his own legendary ambition? Like and subscribe for more hidden stories.